The Southern Miss Golden Eagles have let head coach Will Hall go. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, not a whole lot of games to go over. Only 4 games over the weekend. A couple of big-time upsets. We will go over all of them. But the big news was Southern Miss has let Will Hall go. It was broken by Pete Thamel, and then the Southern Miss media was able to confirm it. Again, not much of a surprise. Everybody knows watching this podcast or listening to the podcast, I'm a big fan of the Fighting Will Halls. I got to know him when he was the offensive coordinator with the Cajuns. He's been very generous with his time. Sure, that's a good reason to like him, but he's a good coach, and it just has not worked out at Southern Miss. And it starts out with the quarterback play, and that's obviously his job. And it doesn't take a super genius to figure out if you can't get that quarterback going. And it doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, Southern Miss, Alabama. How about my Orange? All of a sudden they have a quarterback and they're pretty good. What a shack. So we'll get into more of that in a minute. But just to recap, obviously they're 1-6 this year and just have not played very well. A couple of, bad breaks against the Cajuns and a couple of tough breaks against ULM. Maybe the games would be different, maybe not. He was 3-9 in his first season, and I just remember, the first game turned out it was against Kane Womack and South Alabama before they were in the conference. It was not a conference football game. It was a season opener, and it took South Alabama with Jake Bentley, and I believe Jalen Tolbert, to get going a little bit offensively. And then it was over. They blew him out. And it wasn't very close. And Will Hall took it very personally, almost a little bit too personally. And, they had, the U.S. Southern Miss was in a bowl game against the Cajuns. And let's see here, 13, 14, 15, 16. And it fell apart shortly thereafter, maybe even later than that, but it just fell apart. And Will Hall tried to clean it up and couldn't get it going. All right. So again, he did get the bowl game, and they did win the bowl game behind Frank Gore Jr. Remember, was it, I guess it would have been his second year, right? It would have been in 22, where he's got Frank Gore as his quarterback, and they're not winning one ball game, they're winning 2 because all the quarterbacks went down, and they just couldn't build on it in 2023. And then obviously in 2024, they banked everything on Tate Rodemaker, and it has not worked out, the transfer from Florida State. So I don't mean to pick up. Well, so this is the story. This is the real story, right? The whole bag of marbles, if you will, was on Ty Keys. Ty Keys was recruited by Will Hall to go to Tulane. He was going to Tulane. Will Hall gets a Southern Miss job. Ty Keys is going to Southern Miss. Hurts his thumb and never gets going, never gets healthy. He is now at Eastern Mississippi Community College. That's the Last Chance U. And he's been there setting records last year, by the way, in 2023. He's back for 2024 as well. Has flirted with schools like Syracuse and Louisiana Tech, but is back in junior college. And when you put all your marbles in one bag, it doesn't work out, you're always behind the 8 ball, right? Florida State, for example, that's been a problem. See what happens when you don't get the quarterback right? Happens at all levels. So Reed Stringer, another former Cajuns tight end coach, and recruiting coordinator is taking over. He's Mississippi through and through, by the way, as well. We'll see what direction they go in. Matt Houston was fired from East Carolina earlier in the day. We'll see if Sean Clark is on the hot seat. That hasn't been great this year either. I don't know if it's fair or insulting or improper. We'll see if they fire a coach after the storm. That I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. All right, with all the damage that's going on up there, but it's important. The App State football program is important, to the people of that part of the state in Boone, North Carolina, and you need to be uplifted a little bit. And App State hasn't played well so far this season, and so we'll see. I found when I spent very little time, to be honest with you, in Southern Miss, but I did find it that they have their own passionate Southern Miss only fan bases. They don't. I mean, maybe there's a little insulting going on between Ole Miss and Mississippi State and something like that, but they just kind of stay to themselves. They get good crowds when they're winning, right? Compared to the Cajuns, when they get App State at home and they're playing at the same time that LSU is playing, half the stadium's empty. All right. So there was a ton of overlap with the Cajuns, not so much with Southern Miss and the other SEC schools in that area. So it is a passionate, pretty big fan base. We saw the Coliseum rocking right when they started winning basketball games a couple of seasons ago under Jay Ladner, and good to see that he is getting back and healthy. But they pack them in, and we know how good the baseball program is as well there for Southern Miss. So we'll see what direction they go in. Do they go? Can you find a Bob Chesney at a lower level with head coaching experience? Does someone? I mean, want to put this out here? Hasn't happened yet. He actually had a big win. What's Billy Napier doing? Right? What's going to happen there? I'm not sure he's taking Southern Miss anytime soon, but we'll see what happens. I'm not sure Billy's going to be available. We'll find out. All right. He had a big win against Kentucky over the weekend. So we'll see. Do you get the hot new offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator? Will Hall did what he could with the NIL. He's one of the few coaches that I saw, close to begging, pleading, right? Getting out there and saying, we need your help. They are set up to do pretty well in NIL. What can you accomplish with that remains to be seen. And the Sun Belt is hard, right? The Sun Belt is hard, right? Texas State is finding that out. Now, all of a sudden, the doormat of the Sun Belt, certainly the Sun Belt East, is atop the standings. ULM and the Cajuns are tied for first. So it's not impossible to do what, the heavy lifting. We've seen Brian Vincent do it in half a season. There's still half a season to go. But the Sun Belt is just not, it's not a pushover, right? We're seeing what happening with Troy, right? Back-to-back Sun Belt championships. And, we'll see if they win a game in the conference. It's not easy. It's not too many, patsies on a week-to-week basis, right? And so that's the issue. And for a lot of the season, Southern Miss just hasn't been competitive, and that obviously is one of the reasons that they are moving on. All right, so we will keep an eye on that. I'm not a big fan. I love the whole coaching carousel thing. I love all the rumors and everything like that. And I think Will Hall is going to get he's going to get hired in a heartbeat. He'll be an offensive coordinator next year somewhere, no doubt about it. And he's, as the head coach of Southern Miss, he's well compensated. Maybe not as well as some others, but he's well compensated. So him and his family will be fine. It's the guys who are making incredibly low six figures that sounds like a lot of money when you're moving around and you got kids in school and you got to upend them and you got to find a new school come January. At the same time, you got to finish coaching the season. It is not easy. for the support staff, and that is where my heart goes out. Do wish Will Hall all of the best. I am very confident he's going to land on his feet. All right, big ball games this weekend in the Sun Belt. How about Georgia Southern and JC French? Thank you very much, with a big win over JMU to sit atop the Sun Belt East standings. We will do that after. We'll talk about that when we come back, after we talk about Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Here's how to use it. For the best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep, and then enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Did not see this one coming. Be the first to admit it. Georgia Southern upends James Madison 28-14. It was 21-0 at half. If you'd asked me who had a better chance of being up 21-0 at half, I would have gone James Madison, but I would have been wrong on that one. Really interesting game from JC French. 3 touchdowns and three interceptions. So that is the good and the bad. Intercepted on his second pass of the game. JMU misses a field goal. Georgia Southern fumbles on the next possession. JMU punts. So JMU really not sharp at all. They went 4 plays and out on their first possession. Second possession, they had that missed field goal after the fumble. Then they punted. Then Georgia Southern had a touchdown. JMU punted after 8 plays. They traded a couple of punts. Then a nice 18-play. How about that? That's impressive. You know, coaches love that. 18 plays, 96 yards, 9 minutes, and 14-second drive. See if it gives it to me. So that started with 12 minutes and 56 seconds left to go in the second quarter, and they scored a touchdown with 3:48 to go in the second quarter, and then they were able to put up another one because JMU went 3 and out. Yeah, they just did not have it. He does throw a pick 6, but then comes back and leads Georgia Southern on a touchdown drive to basically put the ball game away. And again, as someone who has been ridiculously fortunate with our picks as of late, it is amazing how close these games really are. Georgia Southern should have lost to Marshall, right? They beat Marshall. They jump on top of JMU 21-0, and all of a sudden, they're atop the Sun Belt East standings. Unbelievable, if you ask me. Unbelievable. So I think it's great. Let me see where we are here. Georgia Southern on top of Old Dominion, and I believe that's next week's game. Old Dominion hosting. That's even just a pick 'em. Old Dominion is 2-1. Marshall all of a sudden is 2-1. James Madison 1-2. Coastal 1-2. App State and Georgia State have yet to win a ball game in the conference. So, oh man, Georgia Southern is up top. Let's see who else they got. Because I think ODU is next week. The line came out and it was a pick 'em. That game is that this Thursday night? It is Thursday night on ESPN2. Georgia Southern at Old Dominion. So is that a couple of national televised games? No, that's like 3 straight nationally. Oh no, that was that's ESPN Plus. So they'll get another national televised game because the Marshall game was. They're at South Alabama. They get Troy, Coastal, and App State. I know they're going to Coastal. Winning on the road is hard. It is. But they're going to be favored against Troy. We'll see what happens with Old Dominion. I don't think they'll be favored against South Alabama. We'll see what South Alabama does on the field. But I don't think they'll be favored against South Alabama. But they'll be favored. They'll probably be favored against Troy eventually, or against Old Dominion eventually. They'll be favored against Troy. They'll probably be favored on the road against Coastal Carolina, especially if they win these other ball games. And they'll be favored against App State. I mean, is Georgia Southern staring a 10-2 regular season in the face? Not a done deal by any stretch of the imagination. Could certainly lose to Old Dominion. Could certainly get tripped up by South Alabama. But they're better than Coastal Carolina. They're better than App State, and they're better than Troy. Even that is 8-4. Although I'm not sure if it is a Sunbelt East crown. But that's a solid season. All right. The other game we'll go over in this segment is Texas State and the other upset. I guess we should have waited for the other upset for the next segment. We'll do this now. It feels like Texas State, and they lose to Old Dominion. All right, so that's a really nice win by Old Dominion. ODU led it 14-0 at the end of the first half, and they scored 10 to hold them off in the second half. Colton Joseph, ran for 3 touchdowns, including sealing the ball game late in the game when it was a 3-point game. They had basically wrapped it up, but he did an RPO and he kept it, and he ran for I believe a 28-yard touchdown. It kind of feels like Texas State is a little bit like South Alabama last year. Huge expectations, tons of talent. Same quarterback. Well, not the same quarterback, but the Sunbelt Player of the Year coming in. Same coach. Mahdi coming back. Joey Hobart coming back. Defense is going to be better, a year into it. And, they tripped themselves up against Sam Houston. It was bad. They go on the road. It can be one thing if you lose to Old Dominion, And it was a late score. So it was 17-14 late. And so the extra touchdown makes it look like it was a double-digit ball game. But, if it's 28, 24, and it's kind of going back and forth, but they were behind all game. It kind of, here's the thing with the Texas State thing. You start to lose that motivation. Now, when you start to lose, right? Now, they still have all their goals in front of them because they still play ULM and the Cajuns. So they can still win the Sun Belt West. They can still be Sun Belt champions. They damn well better play better than they have, right? We weren't even all that impressed with what they did against Troy, and they have to play better, all right? On the other hand, Old Dominion turning things around. From 1-4 to 3-4, 2-1 in the conference, and have a chance to tie for first place with technically being first place with a win against Georgia Southern. They'd be 3-1 in the Sun Belt. Now, good job by Ricky Ronnie again. Old Dominion so close to having such a spectacular season. I want they get blown out by Tech, and that's about it. Lost to South Carolina. Should have beaten South Carolina. East Carolina probably could have beaten East Carolina. Got blown out by 20 by Tech. Beats Bowling Green. Had a 10-point lead on Coastal and let Coastal score like 28 unanswered points. They do hold off Georgia State, and they actually get a 2-score win against Texas State. Now, having said that, can't do anything about that. You got to move forward. And we got another Big East. Big Sun Belt East showdown, like the third in a row. And we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'm going to pick that. That's got one that's going to stay away from, because we called that trap game for Texas State, because maybe they were looking ahead to the Cajuns because they haven't beaten the Cajuns. On the other hand, they still have the Sun Belt West title available to them, and one of those things. If we can't win it, we're going to prevent the other teams from winning it. So we'll see what happens if GJ Kinney can get his guys riled up. That Cajuns Texas State game isn't until not a week from tomorrow, a week from Tuesday. So they have both teams, the Cajuns and Texas State, have a couple of extra days. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Cajuns looking the way that they should have looked now for a couple of weeks. And Arkansas State has a nice win on the road at the expense of the Fighting Will Halls and Southern Miss. We'll do that after we come back and tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. That makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Remember, you get those priority Game Time Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, etc. All in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, and you get those panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and you get that Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Cajuns offense looked like what the Cajuns offense should have been looking like as of recently. And again, as someone who picked the Cajuns, -5.5, if you saw the highlight of Ben Wooldridge on the run, heave-hoing it to Terrence Carter for a 59-yard touchdown pass, Carter goes up between two defenders, not only makes the catch, lands on his feet, but runs into the end zone. So, and as a side note, if he goes down, because this was only a couple of minutes to go, they may have been able to run out the clock without scoring. But he scores, the Cajuns cover. Schultz is happy. But this is the kind of offense. Ben Wooldridge, again, this is a great example, right? The big question we had going into the season is, who was the Cajuns quarterback and would he be able to stay healthy? And so far, Ben Wooldridge has been staying healthy, right? We've had Jordan McLeod as the potential player of the year, Alonzo Barnett III as a potential player of the year, and we've had Gio Lopez as a potential player of the year. Got to start including Ben Wooldridge. 27 of 36, 373 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Bill Davis had an excellent game on the ground, 19 carries and 110 yards. Ben Wooldridge even scored a rushing touchdown, sneaking it in. Cajuns didn't rush the ball all that well, except for Bill Davis. Silent Perry struggled, and I'm not sure what's going on with Draylon Washington. Seems to have been replaced a little bit. But there was a play, I think it was their first touchdown. I like the way the offense was with Wooldridge running to his right, and you had one receiver short in the flat in front of Wooldridge, another receiver a little bit deeper in the flat. Same, almost this, parallel. And then you had, I think, Carter coming across, trailing the play, wide open. That was great. That was fantastic. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see 10, 15-yard passes across the field, and now I got to make a move to help a guy miss for me just to get 4 yards. No, go downfield. Cajuns defense played pretty well. Give Coastal a credit. They struggled to begin with. Cajuns jumped out to a nice lead. I think, it's 14-0, 17-7. And, Coastal went down and scored a touchdown late in the first half. They did tie it up with a field goal, but the Cajuns come right back. In fact, both teams scored a pair of touchdowns. And then the Cajuns put up a field goal, and then they got a 3-and-out, and they got the touchdown late. So the Cajuns are now tied with ULM, who was off. And the Cajuns, like I said, are going to San Marcos and Texas State. Here's the thing. Texas State has never beaten the Cajuns. It shouldn't be a thing. It's kind of like we've been at casinos a little bit, and even with the baccarat, but the roulette wheel shows red, black, and the numbers, and 7 comes out 3 out of 5 times. It means nothing. It means nothing. It's a nice glamour and glitz, and to get you to bet 7, but that next roll has nothing, or the previous roll has nothing to do with this roll. Certainly in college football, on this what is a year-to-year basis, it's not. All right. Neither quarterback, both of who could have come back, who started this game last year, not on this team, not on either team. Right? TJ Finley for Texas State and Zion Chris for the Cajuns. 2 totally, I don't want to say totally different teams, but 2 different teams. And then Texas State has never beaten the Cajuns. So it's a big opportunity for them to right themselves. They have not played well as of late. We'll certainly preview it coming up, although we don't have to do it anytime soon because it's a week from Tuesday. But I mean, Texas State is 4-3. Oh, they blew it against Arizona State. Should have won that one. They certainly blew it against Sam Houston. They did not play well against Troy. They did blow out Arkansas State, and then did not play well against Old Dominion, and Old Dominion did. And so they have not played well in 4 of their last 5 ball games. They are 3-5, 3-2. I'm sorry, 2-3 of those. But they got a win against Troy. They weren't going to lose that game, but I just didn't think they were looking very sharp. And sometimes those bigger goals are not available to you anymore, you lose a little bit of motivation. We'll see. It's a big ball game. I don't think it won't be a big ball game. I'm sure it'll be sold out. It is a Tuesday, so it's a little bit of an odd night. But the rest of us get to enjoy it on a nationally televised night. All right, the other ball game that unfortunately put a nail in Will Hall's coaching coffin at Southern Miss was Arkansas State. I think this is the first win for Arkansas State at Southern Miss since the 70s. I think I saw 44-28 and not a close ball game at all. Jalen Rayner bounces back from not a very good ball game against Texas State. 20 of 31, only 186 yards, but 3 touchdowns. Ran it 6 times for 34 yards. Jacquez Cross, 127 yards and a touchdown. Malik Hornsby, with a former Texas State quarterback, by the way, had one 73-yard run, and that was for a touchdown as well. Real solid ball game for Arkansas State. A little bit of a ball game at half. It was actually 28-21 at half. Let me see where this game was. It was 14-0 and 21-7, and it got to be 28-21 Arkansas State, but they did outscore them 16-7 in a big 13-0 third quarter for Arkansas State against Southern Miss. Let's see what the yardage. Yeah, Arkansas State outgained them exactly by 100 yards, 467 to 367. Passing totals were exact, but Arkansas State rushed for 281 yards. Oh my goodness. They averaged 7.2 yards a carry, and Malik Hornsby's 73 yards is obviously going to help that. Going to help that average 1 carry in 73 yards. So Arkansas State, let me see what Arkansas State is. So Arkansas State currently 2-1. I mean, they're only 1 game out. Have they played the other teams yet? Let me see. I mean, now they lost to Texas State, but they get the Cajuns in Monroe. Technically, they're not out of it. They do host Old Dominion late in November, but they're getting Troy and Georgia State. Those are very winnable ball games. Very winnable ball games. One's at home, one's on the road in Atlanta. But So Arkansas State. So the West seems a little bit more wide open than the East, although records are very similar. That's the way it looks like to me anyway. Certainly have to put the Cajuns and ULM up top. Next Tuesday is going to be a big day. Let's see what happens. What is so we know Georgia's Southern's playing ODU. Quickly, we're going a little bit long on this episode. Let me see here. Nope, we don't want the highlights. We want week 9. So you got Georgia Southern and Old Dominion on Thursday. This is a little bit of a tricky ball game. Interesting. South Alabama is favored by 8.5 over Monroe. How is that feasible? 8.5. It's a 5 o'clock ball game. App State hosting Georgia State, so someone's going to get their first Sun Belt victory. James Madison hosting Southern Miss. JMU favored by 24.5, and Arkansas State is favored by Troy. So you could have some blowouts in this one. The biggest ball game is Georgia Southern against Old Dominion, and I'm trying to figure out the Monroe South Alabama line. That doesn't make much sense. That's people not watching it, which is crazy because they're like one of the best stories in the nation. Interestingly enough, coincidentally or ironically, or neither. Right? It's Kurt Cignetti, former Sun Belt coach at JMU, riding high, potential coach of the year, and Brian Vincent, the other potential coach. But Brian Vincent, ULM, was off this week, so he didn't get any pub. Going to South Alabama and beat the Jaguars, you'll get some pub. 8.5 seems like a lot. That seems like a ton right now. Do we know what the money line is? I don't know what that is. Okay. All right. We'll continue to follow the Will Hall or the Southern Miss coaching search. Reed Stringer's taking over. Very experienced coach, although never been in this position, I don't think. So we wishing him all the best and wishing Will Hall and his family all the best as well. Thanks so much. We're continuing to grow. We're over 1,560 at my I would say real job, but full-time job. I do recruit people to be locked on Sunbelt. So I appreciate it. We will see. What do we got? 10 days, Halloween. Let's see if we can get to 1,600. Come on, we can get to 1,600. I still want 2,000 by the end of the year, but that seems a little bit far-fetched. But we're almost at 1,600. Hopefully we can do this. And sad to say, sometimes coaching searches do garner some interest. So that is sad. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you had a great weekend. Now, we got a great race going on in the Sun Belt East and the Sun Belt West, and we have our first coaching search of the offseason taking place. All right, so we still got lots of going on, and basketball is just around the corner. I swear I will get to interviewing, hopefully not only interviewing, but talking Sun Belt basketball. All right, so appreciate everybody's support. You've been watching Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.